Welcome back to the Stay Introverted Podcast. I am your co-host, Jay Coleman.
I am your other co-host, Steph Laffey.
And as always, we want to thank you for taking time out of your day or evening to listen to a couple of introverts talking stuff. It's always appreciated.
Always appreciate it. And Jay, I have to say, I've never seen you so smiley. What are you smiling about?
I don't know. I just try to smile when I talk on these podcasts because I don't always smile.
Am my resting happy face rubbing off on you?
A little bit.
I love that.
I got some of the Stephanie resting happy face.
I love that for you. Just I have to warn you, be careful when you're walking around like the city or just around people because when you start with that resting happy face, you attract all different kinds of people. And as an introvert, we don't always want that.
I'm inclined to agree because I attract people when I'm not smiling, so I can only imagine what's going to happen if people see me out here smiling, with these cheeks just cheesing. So yeah.
It's challenging. I mean, it's one of my biggest, ongoing life problems is being approached by strangers because I can't stop smiling.
I don't know what that's like yet, and I don't really want to know.
People are like, "Can you help me?" I'm like, "No." Smile, smile, smile. I can't help you. But all right, fine.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
And then
So
I'm like, then I look like an asshole because I'm like smiling while I say no. And then I'm like, all right, I guess I have to.
resting happy face. Who knew?
Rest, resting happy face problems.
Well, it's just the two of us today talking some
hmm
stuff. One of the things that was on my mind was actually in a previous episode that we recorded with our good friend Tamara Stillman. Awesome episode. Can't wait for you guys out there in podcast land to hear it.
hmm
As I call it. I don't know what it was called. Uh, but one of the things out of the many things that we talked about, or rather that she talked about, was being stuck in the basement. And that, as a person who overthinks and gets in his own head, that kind of hit hard.
hmm
And, she essentially likened it to, just just that, getting stuck in the negative parts or getting stuck overthinking, just being stuck and just not being able to move because you're frozen by negativity, inaction, bad feelings, thoughts of, shame, despair. And she just said, or she talked about how we get there, how we acknowledge that we're in the basement, and then, how we kind of gain the strength to get ourselves out. And
hmm
for me, it was just I had never heard it described like that.
I loved
And
it.
it just when it resonated, it made all the sense in the world. And it's something that I can relate to. I think you did. I think a lot of people can kind of relate to not just, how she described it, but just, what it's called, just being stuck in the basement. And,
hmm
you know, if you if you're not used to the conversation, you might think it has some sort of negative kind of connotation, but it's actually, I think it resonates to me, and I'm curious how you felt about it.
I think having been in positions in my life of going through being stuck in the basement, like all those times when I was stuck in the basement, I felt so alone and I felt so like just like nobody's ever been this depressed before and therefore like there's no hope for me. Like this sucks. Like I'm just all alone in these feelings. And hearing it described in such a relatable visual. Like the way that you described it, oh, you're just stuck in the basement. All you have to do is get out. And it's like it just I almost wish that I had that analogy or that image and to lead me out of those situations back when I was stuck in the basement because it's like okay, like if we can liken it to something so simple as like just going down the basement and getting stuck there and knowing that literally all we have to do is climb those stairs, it just it gave me so much hope, you know? And it made me want to go back to those moments when I was stuck in the basement and just give myself a hug and say, look, like I know you're here now and I know it's dark and it's cold and it's scary and it's lonely, but one day you're gonna have the strength to climb those stairs and get out and go see the sunlight again and it's gonna be okay. And I just that was where my mind went when she first made that analogy. Like, okay, all I have to do is find the strength to climb those stairs and come on out.
Yeah, you said a couple of things that definitely stuck out there. First was you mentioned that when we're in the basement, when we're in our heads or in our feelings or just dealing with whatever, it's easy to think that we're the only ones that are going through this or have ever gone through this, and no one understands what it's like to go through, whatever it is that we're going through at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important that we try to see that that's not always the case, and that you know again, it's not a competition to see who has the worst, who's worse off, but there are people who can relate to what we're going through, and we have to try to kind of be aware of that, and you know be open and receptive to people trying to help us or trying to guide us to
Mm-hmm.
those stairs and into the light. The second thing is like making it up those stairs out into the sunlight. It can be hard. It's hard taking that first step. And that's something that we talked about on that previous episode. It's just, you get weighed down by doubt and or grief in some cases, or just any of those negative emotions and feelings. And it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right. And I wonder, I as you were talking a moment thinking, I wonder if part of the reason that it's so scary to leave that basement is like the idea that, what if I leave this basement and I gather the strength and wherever I climb up to is even darker and worse than where I came from. Like, what if I climb up those stairs and it's not light? It's even darker somehow. Um, and I think, at least for me, I think that fear kept me stuck for a very long time. I was like afraid, like, okay, if I unpack this, if I actually deal with all these emotions that I'm feeling, it's just gonna open up Pandora's box and I'm gonna feel even worse than what I feel now. So let me just stay where I am.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you're right. I may be stuck here in this sadness or this depression or this whatever, but I know this sadness. I know this depression. I know this feeling. I don't know what's out there. I don't
Hmm.
know if I'm strong enough to handle that. What if it doesn't work? At least here, I know what's here. Um, and I think sometimes we just kind of we're afraid to take a step because we're afraid that it may be worse. Um, and again, it's not that we're happy where we are. I don't think anybody wants to, feel depressed or feel any negative feelings, but it's just, you know, you don't know. But when you're down bad, you don't feel very eager to take chances.
Hmm.
Um, and it's hard.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering if you've ever, I also feared in some ways things getting better. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, that's like such a weird thing to even say out loud, but I remember for a long time, I just was so afraid to get out of the basement because I was so used to being down there with all my thoughts and my problems and my fears that I was like, well, if I come out of this, like I'm almost afraid to be in the light and I'm almost afraid to be happy because then what happens if all gets taken away again?
Yeah, I think, fear of failure is always there. But there is such thing as fear of success. What if it does work out? What if things do improve? To your point, you know, what I get out the basement, but this feeling is only fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a ruse or it's just temporary. Then what happens? I've gotten my hopes up
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if I can deal with that. I know how to be depressed. I know how not to rely on things. And I know not how not to expect things to work out. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to now deal with that disappointment after I've gotten my hopes up. I don't know
Right.
how to deal with that. Yeah, and that's a real thing. And I think sometimes we get frozen by um, that outlook. But
Mm-hmm.
I can say that it's just as hard as it is, as scary and as challenging and as daunting as it may seem, we have to find that strength to take that first step. And it's hard, something that I deal with currently.
Mm-hmm.
I've been open about me being in therapy and talking about my issues and whatnot. And it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to kind of wallow in self-doubt and uh self-pity and all those negative feelings, but it's hard um taking that step. It's hard taking ownership of your improvement, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better word. Because
Right.
it's scary and it may not work out, but it may work out. So
Right. And I think there's something to be said that like when you do leave the basement, I think before I even go there, I think like just to touch a little bit more on what you said, it's easier to stay in the basement, I think, because we know it's here. It's familiar. It's like even if depression sucks, at least we know what it is. We know how it feels. And like I I fear the unknown more than I fear being depressed, especially when I'm depressed, because I've been there. I know how to navigate life, even if I feel like completely deflated. But what I don't know is what's on the other side of that. And like I think that fear of not knowing what comes next is what keeps us like kind of just trapped there. Because at least we are aware of what life will look like if we stay here.
yeah,
There's no way of knowing like what life will look like if we leave.
totally agree. I have a question. Do you think uh being in the basement happens more for men or for women?
Probably men. I was gonna say women and then men came out. So I don't I think that we're at a weird point in society right now that it's I think it used to be a very obvious woman, right? But now I feel like the way the society is going, it's men because of the way that people seem to be treating and speaking about men.
Mhm.
Like it's not okay to cry. Like it's women's turn to speak and put their shit out there, and men just need to like bottle it all up and be strong and quiet and like I don't know. I feel like there's not as much acceptance of men being able to share their feelings, which means there's less room for men to be able to heal and take up space. But then again, I don't know. I think that it, I don't know if it really matters. I think that, yeah, I don't know. I'm stumped. What do you think?
I mean, it's not a quiz, so no worries.
I think it
I
could be either, right?
it could be either. I'm inclined to agree with your first kind of thought that it is men, particularly. for the reason that you said, and that they're really, at least in the past, a little getting a little bit better now, but there really wasn't, like you said, any space made for men to, express um, how they truly feel and the things that they go through. And both, men and women kind of have, or rather believe in stereotypes and societal, thoughts. So it's not. I don't think it's anyone's fault in particular. It's just, what we've come to kind of expect and think from society. But yeah, I think that a lot of times space hasn't been made. I also think that men kind of have a higher tolerance, and it's not necessarily a good thing. I don't think,
Hmm.
but have a higher tolerance for just things going wrong,
Right.
or being uncomfortable. I guess is a better phrase than that. You know, it's not so much that we don't see what's wrong, it's just that kind of it is. We're expected to endure. We're expected to
Right.
persevere. We're expected to just work that shit out. But not everything can be handled with that kind of mindset. Sometimes you have to do the work and talk to somebody, and
Right.
we're not always uh prepared for that.
Right.
A lot of it is, that's not how we're taught growing up.
Hmm.
Feelings and talking just isn't really what we're taught, as little boys.
Right.
Um, but you get to a point where it's important, and that can't be the excuse. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, I do think it affects men more so, at least for now, for a variety of reasons. Um,
Right.
I do hope that we as men see more of the benefits of just even if you're not going to go to therapy, just talking to somebody,
Right.
just seeing kind of the benefits of that. Because I will say I see the girlies are in therapy, and they're healing. So
Hmm.
um, if they can do it, I mean, there's really no excuse.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious if so we're finally at this point in society where it seems like the the idea that men don't cry and men don't have feelings seems to be becoming more and more outdated and less of like an accepted rhetoric. Like people are rejecting that outright. But at the same time, we're telling, there's trend all over the internet, like this is woman's turn and like, men take a back seat and stop talking. It's like women's time to share their voice. And it's like, okay, like which is it? Like, is it okay for men to express themselves or do we want them to be quiet so that women can talk? Like which I'm confused.
Yeah, well, I mean, the tough part about the internet is that there's very little room or desire for nuance.
Hmm.
It had like you're either team shut up or team talk. It's like it's not that it's not that simple.
Right.
I do think there are. Um, I think there needs to be more spaces made um, for women because historically there hasn't been.
Hmm.
And I think looking through that lens, yeah, might as a man you might need to shut the fuck up. Like you've done
Hmm.
enough.
Right.
And when we're talking about um, how women or getting women's perspective on being what they go through, just being women, having to navigate as a woman. That's something that I have no experience. I have no frame of reference for that. So that's
Right.
something that I can add to that conversation. All I can do is listen,
Right.
and ask questions. Um, but when we're talking about things that affect both of us, then yeah, I do think that both men and women need to have the space to have a productive conversation.
Hmm.
Um, I tend to look at it as far as like the balance, I guess, still is kind of in favor, not in favor, but still is weighed heavily towards men in some things. So looking at it through that lens, I think a lot of times, yeah, we probably should, as men, just take a step back, let them talk. Like, what do we have to lose? Like, we've caused enough fucking trouble already. And this is like it's just
Right.
we can hear someone else out. But you're totally right in the sense that um totally silencing one side, any side, you know,
Right.
doesn't work. I don't
Right.
think it ever works.
Right. Like, so why do my whole view is why do we need to silence one so that the other can talk? Why can't we just make space for both? It makes no sense. Like instead of saying shut up so women can speak, say let women speak too.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it needs to be either or. Like, we don't need to send men to the basement so that women can get out. We can just help everybody get out of the basement. That that's my view. I think that shoving other people down and stepping on other people in order to bring one group ahead that was previously like pushed back or pushed down, I think that's just a dangerous road to go down because for me, I mean, I'm not a man, but there are a lot of men in my life. And I personally cannot be truly fully at my best and my happiest if the men in my life are in the basement because then they're not able to give me their best selves and it's like it all falls apart.
Mhm.
So I would rather come out of the basement and see all my favorite guys like also out of the basement with me because we all need each other. We all rely on each other. Men are 50% of our society. So to say they need to shut up about their feelings so that us women can speak, I mean, that's just a strange view. Like, we should all just be having conversation.
Yeah, totally agree. And you're right. I think that the the thought should be more of, we should be working to change the thoughts of and attitudes surrounding, what masculinity is, what femininity is, as opposed to just saying, shut up, go away.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, sometimes I guess it's easier to just try to silence somebody than to actually have that nuanced conversation. Uh,
Right.
and then, of course, you have people on both sides who just, don't want to hear it. And unfortunately, they're very loud. So
Yeah.
because they're loud, sometimes you get it's easy to think that a large portion of the group feels that way, when really
Right.
it's not. It's just these loud motherfuckers here
Right.
who might need to go away.
Yeah.
So that the rest of us
Right.
can have a productive conversation.
Right. And it's like instead of silencing one half, just let the other half enter the conversation. Like
Yeah.
to me, that's just like easy. Like the rising tide lifts all ships, right? Like I think maybe instead of saying all men should shut up so that women can speak, we should just tell all the loud people to shut up so the rest of us can speak, if anything. Just
Yeah, I
kidding.
mean,
We
yeah,
love you
'cause
loud people too. Just maybe don't be so loud.
yeah, I mean, know, TikTok and Twitter and all these places will have you thinking that there's like this big gender war, when really I don't think there is.
Right.
It's just, a lot of misunderstanding, but we're also kind of at a place where roles, I guess, and what it means to be man, woman, everything in between, they're being rewritten in real time,
Hmm.
and there's going to be some bumps in the road. It's not easy.
It is not
But
easy.
to your point, you don't get to the other side by shutting anyone down, or by, telling people, just, shut up. You're telling people, no, you can't be part of this discussion. Now, again, if someone's not contributing, if someone's made it up in their mind that they don't want to be a productive part of the discussion, okay, you can go. But the
Right,
rest of
you
us
can go
here,
in the basement. You get
you
in
can
the
go in the
basement.
basement. But the rest of us here trying to get shit done.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Wow, look at us solving, making world peace a thing.
Look at that. Introverts, just we out here.
Yeah. But when we do decide to get out of the basement and and speak, we got a lot to say, a lot of wisdom to share.
Exactly.
I mean, I will say, I have to ask, do you think that a lot of like your current personality and like all the things that make up your character were formed when you were in that basement, when you were stuck there?
No, not all. Um, I think that a good portion of it was, but I would like to think that who I am and who I'm becoming today, tomorrow, what have you, is formed and shaped by just me kind of being out of the basement, seeing everything that life has to offer,
Mhm.
good, bad, or otherwise, and just
Right,
not letting it get me too down. Although sometimes, hey, stuff is rough.
right.
But I would like to think that I'm growing and learning and changing in real time. Like um the thoughts and feelings that I have now weren't the same 10 years ago, and they weren't the same 10 years before that. And I'm curious to see how things changed in the next 10 years.
Mhm.
But I think the key is, being open to that, which can be hard because we're humans and we get set in our ways and set in our thoughts.
Right,
It is hard to change. It can be hard to learn. Like you said, change is scary. New experiences are scary, but um, they come whether you want them or not.
right. Absolutely. So we grow through, I mean, I'm full of cliches today. We grow through what we go through.
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely think that uh like can you live a life that is like totally full if you've never been to the basement? I'm thinking of like the concept of yin and yang. Like in order to experience all the good and positive and lightness that life has to offer,
Mhm.
it's almost beneficial in many ways to also experience the darkness. And maybe you don't obviously want to experience extreme darkness, but I almost feel like you don't really live, you don't truly live until you've been to the basement at least for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if every day is a sunny day, what's a sunny day?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't. I don't wish it on anybody, but
No,
yeah,
no.
I do think you. I don't think anyone can get through this life without experiencing some sort of disappointment, sadness,
Right.
and whatever. It's just that I think that the basement looks different for people.
Yeah.
Some might be minor, might I didn't get this job. Like that literally may be the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Outside
And
of
that's
relative dying.
right.
And that's okay, that's fine. Doesn't make you any better or worse. But then there's, you know, someone who at every turn, it seems life is beating them down. And it doesn't seem like they can ever get out. It varies. It's kind of like introversion. It's on a spectrum, but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't. I hate saying like everyone I'm there with you. I don't know if you have to go through it is the right phrase, but yeah, I don't know if you really can truly appreciate what life has to offer without experiencing what life has to offer, and it's not always sunshine and kittens. Just
Right. Sadly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's so true. And like, I mean, to that end, like Like, do you think that once you get out of the basement, you stay out? I mean, to me, I'm thinking there's gonna be times in my life where I'm gonna go back to the basement. I just am hopeful that at this point I have the tools to not stay there and not get stuck there. Like I'll go in, come back out in a couple days.
Yeah, well, I mean, if
Uh,
we take this analogy to its logical conclusion, you're thinking of a basement that's part of a house, and
mhm,
you any house you go up, you go up to the main floors, whether it's first or
mhm,
second floor, you go up to the top floor or the attic, spend some
mhm,
time there, you end up in the basement sometimes, but for the most part, you're kind of in that first, second floorish area. So in other words, as my old football coach would say, you don't get too high, you don't get too low. So yeah, I think that throughout life, we're probably going to be in the basement a few times. But
mhm.
again, as I said before, that looks different for everybody. And every time you're in there can look different for you. You know, you,
Right. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
like I might be in the basement this time because my mom passed away. I might be in the basement because my team lost. It's different, it's differences.
Right.
So just because you go back to the basement doesn't necessarily mean it's for the same thing.
Right.
And I think,
Hopefully it's not for the same
hopefully it's
thing.
not.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully, ideally, we're not going to the basement too often,
Hmm.
or for things that are very critical. But yeah, I don't know if you can, like I said, get out of this life without going downstairs at least one time.
Hmm.
Again,
Yeah.
if everything is up here, I'm actually worried because we're not seeing something. So we're not seeing the entire picture.
Right. You're avoiding the basement and that's kind of scary too, because at some point you're gonna like at some point that's gonna come out.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it all comes out some way, some shape, some form. So
correct.
yeah. And I'm curious, in this analogy, like we've really gone like all in with it. What does the attic represent?
That's a good question. What does the attic? I don't know, because yeah, some people are scared of attics. You think that's where like monsters live and stuff. I don't know.
Right.
That
'Cause the
that
attic, it doesn't seem like it would be like, like heaven, like it's like because like you said, like too high, too low. Like the basement is too low. I get what the main floor is, but I'm really having a hard time wrapping my head around what the attic might be.
yeah. I would say again, I think it looks different for different people.
Is it like the
Some
basement at the top of the house? Like you're like, I don't know,
I don't know. Some people make themselves like a little
a loft.
loft or man cave or she shed or whatever, however you want to phrase, however you want to phrase it. I've seen those.
Hmm.
It could be where you store if the basement is where you store your negative feelings, your attic can be where you store all your positive stuff.
Hmm.
But again, you can't stay there 100% of the time. You gotta come downstairs at some point.
Hmm.
That's a good question. I think,
We might have
like,
to rope Tamara into that conversation.
yeah, I think in both cases, it's kind of what you make it.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you can't, it's kind of what you make it. It varies from person to person. And, you shouldn't stay in either place for too long.
Right. It's a very deep discussion we're having.
Yeah, it's a very deep, well thought out non-answer.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. What is like when was I'm just curious and you don't have to answer it if you're not comfortable, but when would you say is the last time that you like emerged from the basement?
Probably a few weeks ago. You know,
Amazing. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Um, just things going on with or rather self-doubt in
Hmm.
connection with my business and my career and family things and just,
Mm-hmm.
wondering if things are going to work out, how are they going to work out, are they, how long are they going to work out for? And
Mm-hmm.
then just uh, recognizing that because of all these of overthinking and all these thoughts, I recognized that I was actually frozen in action, which is for me the worst feeling. So just making a decision to take a step forward,
Mm-hmm.
just seeing kind of where it goes. Like I don't know where I'll end up, but I know I can't get there by staying here.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, welcome to the main floor.
Yes, stay a
I
while.
hope you stay here. Yeah. Take your coat off, stay a
Yeah,
while. Awesome. I love to hear it. I think for me, the most clear emergence from the basement was happened sometime in like early fall, like probably right. I started walking out of the basement uh sometime in August, and I would say I fully emerged sometime in like October,
Mhm.
and I have no intention of going back in.
Good for you.
But if I do, I think I have the tools to get myself out pretty quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was for me this past summer, I realized that I actually have a lot of emotions other than like happy, sad, anger. Um, like I learned how to like name my emotions, acknowledge them. Like there's a lot more emotions than those three. And that was the first time I ever really openly started to explore those emotions. And it wasn't necessarily that things were like bad, it was just a lot. Like when you're acknowledging emotions exist for the first time, like ever, that is that is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And instead of unpacking it over the course of, 29 years, I was unpacking it all at once over the course of about 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
And it was like every time I was like, okay, like I got this, like, all right, like I'm as raw as it gets, like I can't do this anymore, more would come up. Um, and it wasn't until I just accepted that as like, okay, I just gotta go through this experience and just feel all of these feelings and like let them come up and let myself cry and let myself struggle with it. That's when I started to emerge at the basement. Um, so it wasn't even that like by the time I reached the main floor, I was like, shitting rainbows like 24/7. It was that I had learned how to just feel my feelings and sit in them and be able to sit in them in the main floor rather than having to just wallow in them in the basement.
Yeah. That, that's amazing. Kudos to you. That's awesome. That is definitely awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's easier said than done. It's not even easily said. But now, there's still days when I have off days, but I just have them on the main floor.
Yeah.
I don't have to like go hide and like be by myself. Uh, and like feel like, I'm in the deepest depths of despair. Like I just have an off day and this is what I'm feeling and that's all right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Highly recommend journaling, people.
Yes, definitely. That is definitely one way to get out of the basement. You can literally map your way out.
hmm
But Steph and I can definitely, we can talk about this all day, but
hmm
it's about that time of the day where one of us gets hungry.
Are you that person?
I am that person today.
Wow, a record.
Yes.
All right, well, we'll let you go. This was a really powerful conversation. I think that if you guys want to see us continue these more serious topics, like we're definitely open to having these conversations. Um, so be sure to let us know, what resonated, what didn't resonate, what you think the attic represents, because I have no idea. Um, and if you feel, neither of us are a therapist or a mental health professional, but if you feel encouraged to share your story, feel free. I mean, we're not gonna give you advice, but we can maybe be a shoulder for like a message. Uh, but we love you guys, and we hope that, this conversation was helpful to just at least get you thinking about these things. And even if it didn't get you thinking about these kind of things, get you thinking about these things in terms of how you can help your people. So that's kind of all I have to say about that. Any final thoughts?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Awesome. Well, if you guys love this episode, as always, be sure to follow the show on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And then, of course, don't forget to rate, review, share it with a friend, and follow us on all the socials at Stay Introverted Podcast.
Yeah. As always, stay happy, stay safe, and stay introverted. We'll talk to you later.
Adios.